what's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. That is Tom Eschen. I'm Travis Selders. Lots of things going on in the lacrosse world. Typically the summer, a slower time. Not the case this week. We've got the NLL with a new commissioner. The PLL season continuing to heat up. They head to Denver this week. And Athletes Unlimited on the women's side in full force. We'll be joined by a couple of good guests here coming up.
Yes, Lizzie Colson, a captain this week for Athletes Unlimited. The first time she's been a captain in her life there and in her Athletes Unlimited life. That's something I should correct. She's been a star her whole life. And Jack Hanna also is going to join us from the Waterdogs. And we're going to talk about desert dogs and water dogs. And he's a part of all of those dogs. And really which one he identifies with the most.
Quite interesting that he's part of both the Waterdogs and now the NLL's Desert Dogs.
Yes.
But let's start in the NLL with the new commissioner because it was announced, we're taping this on Tuesday, announced on Tuesday morning that Brett Freud is taking over as the commissioner of the National Lacrosse League. He comes from Stewart-Haas Racing, where he was the leader of that organization in NASCAR, in auto racing, and now he joins the NLL, but he has a lot of history in lacrosse. A former lacrosse player at Brown in college. He was a captain there, played for a Final Four team at Brown back in the early 90s. Obviously, he was also from Central New York. So he has a history in the sport, and now he tries to bring some of what he did in NASCAR to the NLL.
Yeah, he also still coaches his kids and all of that. That's kept him involved, and he even says he's played some rec leagues and things. So he has, even after his college career, which has been over for a little bit of time here, he's continued to be involved in the sport, which I think is important. And it feels like anytime you have somebody in this area of expertise that has a passion for the sport, it's a really great match. And I mean, obviously, it's hard to look too deeply into it on face value right now, but you look at his resume and what he's been able to put together and what he said so far, it feels like a very professional hire for a professional league that, to me, is the one that's been around the longest. It's been the most successful over the course of a few decades here in all professional lacrosse. To me, it makes sense. And he's a pro, and he looks and feels like a commissioner to me, which is really important in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the NLL, it's coming up here in a couple of years on 40 years of existence. It has been around for longer than any professional lacrosse league we've seen. I think the thing that stands out from listening to, or a couple of things that stood out from listening to his introductory press conference that the NLL held earlier today. One, it does not seem like expansion is front of mind right now for this league, which I think when you start to talk to people around the league and kind of get a feel for where they're at, it feels like that is where they want to be, which is, all right, we've got a pretty good stable of teams. We've got players that make all of those teams competitive, but we've got so many teams that are about to add this Vegas team here this year that, like, you've got a lot of teams that aren't quite locked in and stable in their cities yet. And so if you have too many of those situations, the league sometimes struggles to continue to grow with those teams kind of lagging behind. Like, everybody wants to be where Colorado and Buffalo are at, where they're filling stadiums for major games and it's like these sellout crowds. But you have situations, whether it's in Texas or New York or San Diego, where you still have to grow that fan base because those teams are very, very new in new emerging lacrosse areas, so that you got to sell the indoor version of this sport a little bit more. So I think that's probably the right move when you look at, all right, we add Vegas, we add a great market with a great ownership group. Now let's try to grow those new markets so that we can get people more on the same page in terms of fan bases.
And that mentality is one of the reasons we had a change in commissioner at the end of the day. We know from talking to people around the league that Nick Sakevich, for all the great stuff he brought to the league, the TV deals at the end of his tenure there with ESPN, TSN, and all the other things, he was a big expansion, big proponent for that. And when that didn't align with a lot of the other people, the board of directors and what have you, that was when, people started to say, okay, is this the right move for all of us moving forward, for better or for worse? And then you bring in somebody here in Freud that's not the first thing on his mind. And I think what we talked about and what you saw in the press conference is some of these corporate partnerships, things that he procured for Tony Stewart and his company were some of the big things that he hopes to bring in. It's not as flashy for the fans. To me, that doesn't mean a whole lot. And probably you, it's like, okay, I don't really know what that means for me and my actual viewing of this and fandom, but it does help the league moving forward and doesn't detract from, adding more teams, like you said, the points you were making too.
But and it's not like the sexy thing, corporate partners for the fan base, but it's what will, at some point, either have this league continue to grow or stagnate it. Like there are a couple of things where it's going to continue to grow. One is the media deals and trying to get money there, but that's only coming with fan bases. The other is finding ways to leverage like where you do have attention. And when you look at professional lacrosse, like the NLL in certain cities has a huge fan base and people that care about these teams. That is something you can leverage into sponsorship deals. And Brett Freud was talking about it in his press conference. NASCAR isn't what NASCAR is today without corporate sponsorships. It's the reason that the sport exists because of the amount of money that corporate sponsors put into racing. That's why they've got sponsors all over everything. Yeah. And
that's why if you ever covered a race, you'll see after the winner of NASCAR, they will take about 20 different pictures wearing different hats. That's how much the sponsorships mean. So they'll be with their crew, with their family, and they will have someone come in and change their hats for different pictures. That's how big it is in NASCAR. I mean, I don't think it might get to that level in the NLL, but as what you were saying, it is very important. It's very involved and within the fabric of that sport.
So he comes from that background, and I would assume that part of his selling point to the league is that I have existing relationships with sponsors at almost every place in the United States, because it doesn't matter what little part of the corporate world you touch, like almost every single one of them is somehow related to somebody who's sponsoring a NASCAR team, because like I said, patches everywhere. So I would assume that was part of the selling point. He mentioned is that in his press conference is something he thinks he can bring to the league. And so I'll be interested to see, as he steps in and kind of tries to get the landscape of the situation, what he then tries to go sell to some of the to people that he has existing relationships with. Because I think that is maybe the first big spot where you see maybe his experience pay off for the league.
The other thing that I think is going to be important, and maybe not as talked about right now, is collective bargaining with the players. Obviously, that's been something on the forefront of the league the last few years, and we had the league delayed a few weeks. Couple years ago, it was into the 2019-2020 season, I believe it was. And of course, there were some things that weren't aligned there. The players wanted some more of the, of course, the gate and the concessions and park and things like that. And they have been kind of on this year-by-year basis ever since. So to be able to lock something down, I think they have a contingency longer deal, but I think to be able to lock something down that is firmly collective bargaining is important. So I'm wondering where that will come into play for him in terms of the roles he's played in the past. And of course, as a lacrosse guy and some of the conversations he's had, but that's another important element here for a commissioner in any sport.
I think he was asked about that in his introductory press conference today. He did shout out the Players Association, including Zach Currier, who was on that introductory press conference. So he knew what his audience was with that question. And he was very complimentary of the players' representatives and their not only ability on the field and understanding what the players want, but also their business acumen. So I think he's going in the right direction. There's also, he was mentioning a committee that's been working on the NLL side to try to get this deal done. That has to be front of mind because, this league is coming off of maybe the best final series we've ever seen between the fan excitement and the exposure and those crowds. You have to be able to try to build off of that momentum, and there's nothing that'll stall it more than having the league, the beginning of the league season and training camp and everything cut short due to collective bargaining.
That momentum's huge, more so the fact they didn't play for a year and a half.
That too.
You can't afford to lose more time or more games at this point because then you kind of evaporate. You're like, well, is this a league that actually goes out there and plays? So consistency is, for the sports fan, as you know, is so important. But I do think by having finally a commissioner, it took them a while to get one, but it's a selection process in the NLL. I think finally getting there where the commissioner makes them feel more like, one of the bigger leagues that we are accustomed to in the U.S. at the very least and elsewhere. Like lacrosse, the professional leagues are kind of all over the place. You got Athletes Unlimited, which is kind of its own entity. You got the PLL, which is run by Paul Rabel and Mike Rabel and some other people within that. But it's kind of like, what does this look like? And at the NLL, you have something that's a little more traditional. And I think that's really important that they draw on that with, like you said, almost 40 years of being around, which is really important and helps stability more so than anything else. I mean, some of these other leagues, I don't know what the future will look like. At least for the NLL, you're like, okay, you have something that you've had for a while, you have a commissioner in place, you have a clear leader in all of this, and you have a path forward.
And, I mean, they've got great ownership groups in all these different cities, a lot of which own the buildings, which is a huge help for them having stability in each one of these cities, because it pays off for these ownership groups if you own the building to have events in those in that building, even if you're not completely selling out, because it's just added revenue in bringing people in the gates. And so they have the stability that other leagues don't. And so everything's set up where, it feels like they can take steps forward. Now it'll be, how do you grow the exposure of the league outside of the lacrosse fans in these different areas? Because as great as it was in Colorado and as great as it was in Buffalo, you need that all over the league. You can't just be in 2 or 3 cities. Saskatchewan's another great one. But it can't just be in those 2, 3, 4 cities. It's got to be throughout the league. And so that'll be a big goal of Brett and the leagues moving forward.
Best of luck to them in that. I'm sure we'll be talking to him in the next weeks and months. It's already August, so the training camp is right around the corner.
Months away.
We're not that far away, and the draft, of course, coming up too here. So that's all very exciting. So NLL, congratulations, you got a commissioner. Let's see how he does.
Yeah, and he's a lacrosse guy. He doesn't need to catch up on what the sport is all about and what the people are like and what it means. Like, he knows all of that. Now it's just stepping in and trying to learn maybe the landscape of a different league. But he's definitely has the knowledge of the sport.
Yeah, you're really curious to see what else he has to say as time moves forward here.
For sure.
So. Nick Sakevich, to his credit, was also always very transparent, which I think a lot of people enjoyed about him. You could ask him in a variety of interviews some questions, and he'd always be pretty honest with you, maybe sometimes to a fault. But that was always a thing that I liked about him in that kind of a role.
Let's be honest, the league wouldn't be as large as it is today without him. So he did he came in and did what he promised he was going to do. He wanted to expand, he did, and now it seems like it's maybe time for a new era of the league, at least for the time being.
Yeah, sometimes that's important in changing hands and trying to get some new blood in there at the same time, which I think is really interesting. So, all right, let's move on.
PLL?
Let's talk PLL now. A whole different ball
Outdoor league.
Outdoor league. In the field, I guess.
Yeah, they played indoors this past week.
So they go to Denver this next week, and they were just in Frisco, Texas.
The Star.
The Star in Frisco.
Yeah.
So we'll look back a bit here and look forward. What some of the pressing questions here is what we often have here. And the Archers, we've talked about this, and they've looked awesome.
At times.
Some days where they haven't looked as awesome, and that was this weekend once again, where they once again scored single-digit goals against the Atlas. Second time they've done that this year. And, they've got the best offense in the league, numbers-wise. Is it that? And our question that comes down to, do they have too many feeders on the team? That's what you wonder with all these deferential type players. Is that really working consistently is my question, because they've had moments that hasn't been consistent over the course of the Archers' tenure.
And I honestly think the way in which they're playing now, yes, they have too many feeders. Because I watched that game this weekend against the Atlas, and I was really excited to see this game because this felt like you saw the Archers take care of business against some teams that you figured that they were going to beat. But this felt like, okay, this could be the Archers showing everybody, hey, we are a team that can contend for the championship. We could be like, because the Whip Snakes we've seen go up and down throughout the year, we are the team that people should be most scared of. I mean, they came into this week with the best goal differential in the league. They were beaten up on teams, and the games they had lost been close. And so you think, all right, maybe this is the Archers' time to really go full pedal to the metal down the stretch. And you watch the way in which they play, and this is why when we had Tom Schreiber on the show last week, I asked them a question about, like, when do you feel like you're making too many extra passes, and when do you say, like, it's just time to shoot? Because I watched Grant Ament specifically, and I know he's coming back from the injury. He's trying to figure out his place in this team. But there was one point on the unsettled situations, a breakaway, Archers have numbers, and he's basically left alone by the defense as he comes from goal line extended all the way to the top. He must have faked shooting the ball 3 times before he finally gets to the middle of the field. Nobody has picked him up, and he shoots and scores his first goal of the season. Now, the result was great, but it didn't need to take 10 seconds for him to get there. Like, at some point, when you've got guys like Schreiber and Manny and Holman and Fields, and I think that's why guys like Fields and Matt Moore have had a little bit more success this year than some of the other guys at times, and it's because they just shoot. It's like, all right, you know what? I've got a matchup. I think I can win it, and I'm going to shoot the ball. And I think these extra passes are great, and they're trying to be, make the highlights, whatever. At some point, I want to see some of these guys on any given possession. You can take turns. But on some of these possessions, they just need to go, all right, I've got a matchup I like. I'm going to win it, and I'm going to go to the rack. And the results are what they are. And, if it's not your day, hand it off to somebody else and let it be their day. But I think too many times they're differential instead of just saying, I'm going to take the ball, and I'm going to take it on me to try to get some points.
Why do you think that is? Where do you think the deferentialness comes from? It's probably not a word, but you know what I'm saying.
It just feels like them it's part of their DNA, like all of them. I mean, because none of them are guys that command the attention. Like, even Grant Ament it just feels like the kind of guy who's like, he wants to dish it off.
Yeah,
Tom
he's
Schreiber,
always been a pass first.
You got a lot of guys that not only like in the way they play, but just in the feeling them out. It's a kind of dish away the attention, pass off, very team-oriented guys, which is great. But at some point, you have to have guys that are going to just take command of the situation. We've seen it down the stretch of games. Like, there have been games that they've lost this year where Tom Schreiber just all of a sudden gone, you know what, we need a goal, I'm going to go get it. Well, we need to do that in the first and second quarters, before they get behind in the games, or in the third quarter in this game against the Atlas, when the Atlas went ice cold offensively, and the Archers still couldn't find a way to get back into the game. Now, the Atlas is a great defense, and they have to get credit for holding this Archers team to single digit twice, but nobody in the PLL has a defense that should be able to match up with all the different weapons that the Archers have on a consistent basis.
No, I mean, and I talked about this at the beginning of this segment. I said, yeah, the Archers have statistically the best offense in the league. Yeah, that's going to happen when you score 17 against Chaos, undermanned Chaos in week 2. 20 against the Cannons. They had another big day against them. They scored 14 against the Chrome, probably their best performance of the year. Chrome have the second best defense in the league. So, I mean, they had huge performances, which you would expect them to have. That shouldn't surprise you. It's the games in which they have single digits. And back to what you were talking about in terms of just the type of guy they have. And we joked about this with Tom Schreiber, didn't joke, but we asked him about Will Manny.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, like Will, man, he's always been a good passer. I remember watching him at UMass and, even his first couple years. And that's all true. But I think if anybody were to ask you what you've seen from Will Manny over the course of his pro career, he has gone more to the side of being a shooter, a scorer, a great finisher. So, I mean, if you're going to tilt the balance, it is going the way of a finisher. But it feels like that idea of the extra pass might be something that's overemphasized. If a guy like that, who we have known to be more of a finisher than a passer. Not that he's a bad passer, but you know what I'm saying. There must be something said in the huddle or in practice that said, always make the extra pass every time. Right? There's got to be there's got to be an instruction there with that mentality, because I don't really know how else to explain it when you have, like, you talk about these guys, Schreiber, Ament, and those being more, pass first type guys always. But now you have a guy in Will Manny where they're like, oh, you can pass too. You do as much as you want. You don't have to just finish all the time. When maybe it should be said in the huddle, Will, you shoot the ball when I pass to you.
Like,
I don't want score. That's enough. Stop passing the ball. Don't let the ball leave your stick.
This is why, I think the Golden State Warriors are the perfect analogy for the Archers. Because if you watch the NBA Finals with the Warriors, they would have a quarter where they looked like the best offense ever put on a basketball court together. Because it was unstoppable. The Celtics didn't matter who they had personnel-wise out there, how they defended him, didn't matter. The Warriors were going to get an open three, they were going to knock it down. And then they would go for 2 quarters where they couldn't make an open shot for the life of them, and they looked like maybe one of the worst offenses in the NBA. And why on earth is this team in the NBA Finals? And that's what it feels like sometimes with the Archers, because when it's all clicking, and it happens, it's happened a bunch this year, when it's clicking, it looks unbelievable. It's moving fast. They're making shots. It almost looks unstoppable. But all it takes is one little stretch, and all of a sudden it goes off the rails fast. And I don't know if it's them winning a matchup or It's just like
it could
off
be
on a given day, a hot goalie. I don't know.
I'll add to that, or a let's try to get this guy going mentality. So that's where you get some of that deferentialness, is that you're like, all right, Grant hasn't scored yet. Let's give him the ball to try to get one. And then we can get him go. It's more. It feels like that could be part of the mentality too. Hey, let's go get the one to Marcus. Like once he gets going, he'll rattle off 2 or 3. It could be one of those overthought processes, and it's like, who cares who it is? I think it's a little bit of the mix of both, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And that's why I really do think Matt Moore has been a really important addition to the midfield, because they were coming out of a timeout in this game, and they had gone in the huddle and they drew something up. Matt Moore came out of the box and said, the heck with what we just drew up. He went downhill dodge. He got his shot on his right hand free, and he scored. And I just think they need a little bit more of that. I also think this team a couple of years ago, or over the last couple of years, has been its best when Granny Ment can beat his matchup for Max. And I think if he can find ways to get open more consistently and beat his guy, then you've got guys like Schreiber and Moore beating him from the top. Connor Fields, is so versatile, whether they run him out of attack or they just keep running him out of the midfield. It seems like he's a guy that continues to be able to beat his matchup, because most of the time he's going up against the 4th or 5th option defensively of a team. It all comes down to that. They need somebody in that attack unit, whether it's Holman, Manny, or Amen, to beat their matchup more consistently, and I think it'll open things up a little bit more.
This weekend's the test, because you got the Whip Snakes, and Matt Dunn is on that defense.
Defense is good.
Yeah,
Kyle Bernlohr's playing terrific.
The Pole and Earhart. Colin Squire's having a great year for them out of Denver, his 2nd season. So I don't know if you can beat those matchups, but we'll see what happens. More in the Whip Snakes in a moment.
Yeah.
All right, let's change this completely. And how about some fun goal talk? Because it was a good week of some awesome goals. What was your favorite from the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know what was in the water down in Texas, but it was all of a sudden, somebody set the tone, and it was like, all right, well, we need highlight goals galore, because there were probably 4 or 5 of the top goals we've seen all year in this weekend. I'm going to go with 2 from the Waterdogs. One is from the guy we're about to talk to here in a second, Jack Hanna, that backhand laser of a shot. Because we saw Jeff Teat do it for the Atlas, and that was a great goal. However, Hanna's was from further out on the run. That's what, to me, just when I saw that the first time, I went, whoa.
Yeah.
It just made you jump in your seat. It was that kind of goal. And the other one was the one for Mikey Sowers, where he tiptoed the crease, had the ability to keep a defender on his back without going in, and then do a little backhand shovel.
Yeah.
The 2 of those goals for the Waterdogs were impressive, and they feasted pretty good early against the Cannons and then held on.
By the way, the PLL released the top 10 of the goals of the weekend. If you're listening, you want to see these. You go check out their Twitter or whatever, because that's where you can find these too. So those are 2 good choices. I really like the Sowers goal for me.
Filthy.
The balance and the control in that situation is Michael Sowers, right? That is who he has been his whole career, and I'm loving seeing this at the top pro level at this point. So that's been really cool.
We need to talk more about Michael Sowers. This dude is so freaking good.
We do, yeah. Maybe we are right now.
Yes, we are. You're right. Anyway, you go. What's your favorite?
So I had one. I have an honorable mention. The Chris Gray lefty runner that pinged the corner.
That was
the degree. It wasn't as flashy as some of these others, but I was watching that game live, and I jumped out of my chair. I couldn't, he was able to release this lefty, and it was like an absolute rocket at the corner. Go check out the goal. It was so cool. And then
from no angle, there was no angle on that shot.
There was no angle on it. It's one of those kind of underrated goals that that were a lot harder than it actually looked.
Yes.
And that's what makes things look easier than they should.
That's true.
So the one I picked was the Ryan Terefenko caused turnover, fast break, swing move, Nick turn finish goal for the Chrome. I thought that was awesome. Defense to offense, Terefenko running the field, the whole 9 yards. I thought that was the sequence was awesome, and it was what I think this league is all about. Getting up and down, and you saw multiple guys involved, other than just the occasional flash from one. So I did think that was my favorite goal of the weekend.
And obviously, Charlie Bertrand had a terrific goal.
Did he need to do it? Did he need to do it, Travis?
I don't know if he needed to do it, but it was cool. that was the old Josh Byrne effect. It
was a poor man's Josh Byrne goal.
Josh Byrne makes that shot look easy. Charlie Bertrand looked like he had to work a little bit harder.
He did. Yes.
That's an awkward shot.
It was
one-handed between the legs, backhand.
He
not easy.
He didn't need.
And he scored.
He did score at the end of it. And maybe there was some deception there that caused him to be able to score. If he was just going to do this, then maybe he would have been stopped.
Here's the thing. We're going to talk to Jack Hanna about this in a second. I do love the freedom in which the PLL gives these guys because of it's just a faster game. It's more fluid. So it encourages you to try some stuff that you may only try in practice. These guys try stuff that maybe in college they were trying in practice, but like in a game, if they threw it in a big spot, it's not going to happen. They throw stuff that they're maybe not comfortable throwing in different situations, and I love it because it takes the sport to another level.
Yeah, and if you miss, the mistake isn't as compounded in the pro game, because you have more possessions.
Yeah.
It's more up and down. It's okay.
30 extra seconds of a shot clock in the college game as opposed to essentially what you're doing, 28 or whatever or 27 from the pro to 52, 53, whatever it is.
And we're talking about Charlie Bertrand and his goal, which was number 1 on SportsCenter, and they lost. So there's some value in that. The Redwoods stink. They're 2-5. So you're talking about Charlie Bertrand and in a loss situation. So that was worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
I like taking the sport to another level, and I think all these guys feed off each other. We saw in the Women's World Championships, all those players were feeding off the fact that somebody throws a BTB and then Dana Dobie does this, and like everybody, and it wasn't even just the United States and Canada. You got the feel that everybody was trying to one up each other, and that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
That is cool. All right, who's the best team in the league?
So you've got a handful of teams you could all go for because
you do.
I really do think so, because I think you can go Whips, Atlas. I think the Archers on any given day could be in that conversation. The Chrome have been good at times, and there may be nobody hotter in the league than the Waterdogs. They got Dylan Ward back, and they seem to be going in the right direction. With the Whips at the top, it's easy to say them, but I'm going to go instead with the Atlas, because right now they've got the best goal differential in the league thanks to what they did late. Almost getting the over-under.
I don't know. Goal differential. Come on. I think we're putting a lot, because they put it on the standings. Okay. I get that's a part of the argument. I feel like everyone's putting a lot into that. And it's like, here's like I talked about earlier with the Archers. Yeah, you score 20 against the good job. You added on 3 or 4 at the end. Like, what at that point? Who cares?
Well. Okay, so that's part of the argument, and you're right. Like some of it you have one huge game where you win by 10. Like that's obviously going to swing.
It skews the whole thing.
But I think it says something to the way in which you can dominate opponents, which is it can be a difference maker in terms of like who you think is better. And you look at this Atlas team on paper, and we talked about them in the middle of the field with their defensive midfield and how much I love that. Trevor Baptiste came back in this game against Dallas.
Feel good.
And I don't even know if he's 100% healthy, and he still won like 75, 80% at the X against the Archers, which continues to be a huge issue for the Archers, by the way. And then on offense, there's not a hole in this team. I keep saying this. Like you got Teat and Gray leading this offense. You got another great finisher to play off of them in Eric Law. And then this defense, led by Tucker Durkin with a bunch of other good pieces around him, it's just locked down and loaded. And so they went through some really sloppy possessions offensively. And the Archers weren't able to take advantage of it. So, the fact that it didn't feel like they played their best game this week in Dallas, and they still beat another team that's top 3 or 4 in the league and has one of maybe the most talented offenses in the league, I think tells you everything you need to know. The Whip Snakes, while they have the best record, they kind of feel like Florida State the second year after the football team, the second year after they came back and won the national championship with Jameis Winston, where the whole year they kept winning and they were still undefeated, so they had to be in the national championship conversation. But everyone's like, I don't know, they're just finding ways to win. This Whip Snakes team this week went 20 minutes without a goal. And their defense played great. But against most teams, you can't go 20 minutes without scoring and still win. They find ways to win one-point games, which I think is great. I just don't know how sustainable that is for yet another playoff run with this group.
I see my counter, because I think the Whipsnakes are the best team in the league. And my counter to that, yes, I recognize the fact that they win a lot of one-goal games.
Like the stat they had on the ESPN broadcast this week, 13-3 in PLL history in one-goal games.
You flip that. You flip that 3-13. You talk about the Whipsnakes a lot differently.
It's unbelievable. How different things could be, even if 4 of those games go a different way.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah, I think belief's a part of it. I think the fact that group, they can handle any situation. They can also handle any style of game. You know, like you said, kind of an ugly game this past weekend, able to win it by 1. Or they can go out and win a game 14-12, which they did against the Chaos. I think the Whipsnakes' ability to either play an up and down battle or kind of grind one out is what separates them from everybody else. And yes, it does force you to, force them to play a lot of close games, but they're able to do that. You got to be in it. If you're in every game, some of them are going to be close. You know what I mean? It kind of adds up at the end of the day. So I feel like for them, their ability to either go out and score a bunch of goals or be able to lock down on defense and get the job done, I think that versatility is, to me, what has separated them their entire existence here. And also this season, too, they show that. I don't know who else in the league has that ability to be able to go out there and grind one out or win a track meet. I know the Archers can't do that.
No,
I'm not sure about the Atlas. I don't know if because they have to win like every faceoff. So you get Baptiste, Nardella, and I think that's even things out. And the Whipsnakes, to me, are going to be able to grind it out against the Atlas and get the job done.
See, I do think the Atlas, even if Trevor Baptiste doesn't win 75-80%, I do think they have the ability, because of their defensive strength, to play different types of games. I don't think they have to play in a track meet. I do think they have really good balance. Maybe if there's anybody that can compare to the balance of the Whipsnakes right now in the league, I think it's them.
Yeah, no, I think they're very close. I agree with that. Yeah,
so I think they're neck and neck. I just worry that the Whipsnakes show up every week and it's like, all right, well, we're gonna find a way to win because that's what we do, and that the Atlas at some point has this a little bit of a chip, and it's like, no, we've got this.
I guess you do think that Whipsnakes Atlas would be close?
Yeah. What's
Whipsnakes' record all time in close games?
All right. Well, you know what? You got me there, Tom.
All right.
They're really good in one-goal games.
That's a
but
good time
sometimes that record doesn't tell you everything.
It doesn't tell you the whole
They have
story.
lost 3 one-goal games all time.
Yep.
Okay.
I walked you.
Including one this year to the Waterdogs.
Yep. I know. Yeah, that's true. They do every so often. And you could be like Florida State. Who knows? Or Michigan State. One year they go to the Cotton Bowl or something, and the next year they went 3-7. I mean, that fell off the cliff.
Well,
Tom Brady style.
That's my argument. Is at some point, sometimes when you live on the edge for that many games, at some point because none of these teams are drastically that much better or worse than everybody else. For the most part, in professional lacrosse, these teams are some are better than others, but they're all in the same general ballpark. So you play enough one-goal games, somebody else is going to make a play that you don't make at some point. It just comes down to statistics.
But the statistics show
Gotta
us
get
that
Joe
hasn't
Keegan on.
Yet. Statistically,
what are the chances that the Whipsnakes continue to have this kind of run in one-goal games?
Jack Hanna had a goal and assist against the Cannons this past weekend. We caught up with him about that, NLL, and much more today.
So we're now joined by Jack Hanna from Waterdogs. And Jack, I got to start with the goal, the backhand. What is going through your mind when you throw that thing on net?
Well, you played me to my top side. I kind of rolled underneath, and I knew my hands were free, so I kind of just let it go. I felt like I was close enough. Didn't really do too much thinking. It just kind of happened.
How many goals have you had like that in games in your career?
I think that might have been my first backhand. Okay. I think I've shot a couple in college like that. But yeah, I don't know if I've scored any like that. I've only shot a couple like that in a game in college, but it's came out a couple times in practice. That's kind of where I've had that from. But yeah, that was my first successful attempt.
How did Coach Tierney feel about those shots you took in college?
Well, yeah, exactly. Most of them happened in practice. So, obviously it wasn't as easy for me to just kind of let that thing fly in college, but that's all right. But yeah, we worked on it in practice in college.
Yeah. I mean, I think we hit on this. Like, there's a freedom to the PLL game. I think some of it has to do with the shot clock, the smaller field, and it's faster and it's quicker. Like, possessions maybe aren't quite as important as every possession in college because of all that. But like we're going to have Charlie Bertrand on here in a minute. Like, is there some freedom that you feel in the pro game where you go, you know what, why not? Like, let's throw this thing on there and see what happens.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think part of that's, the shorter shot clock and a little less structure in how we play. So at times you got to scramble a bit and just use your skill to try to put a good shot on goal. And in college game, there's a little bit more structure to the offense and things like that, obviously, because, you have more time. You can run an offensive set and really work for, a whole minute at a time for a good possession. But I say that freedom comes in the PLL, I believe, just kind of from that sometimes you just got to scramble and get a good shot off. And there's a lot of guys with a lot of skill. So you see some pretty cool goals.
Yeah. And obviously you've now got a good chunk of the season, your first season under your belt. Are there any guys on your team or another that you sort of, watch in awe that maybe you saw on the other sideline in college or even grew up a little bit seeing too, that you're like, man, he does that really well? You got a guy like Zach Currier gets every ground ball on your team, or Dylan Ward or someone like that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I would say, at this level, the one thing I figured out is pretty much every guy has something that they can do very well that has separated them in the college game. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like you said, watching Zach Currier pick up the ball in practice, and then even watching him in games, like some of the times when he picks it up, I'm a little in awe how he did it. But, trying to pick up from everybody, obviously watching Ryan Brown shoot a lacrosse ball is a pretty fun thing in person. I think we can all agree upon that. But, I would say there isn't a guy that I haven't tried to pick something up from watching, and that goes for guys on other teams and on my team in general. But it's really fun to be around that much skill and see, how some guys have some, special skill that they've learned how to do, and it separates them, and it's kind of fun to kind of watch and try to do some of that stuff.
So along those lines, like, what have you learned about what you think you can bring to the table and what you felt like you brought to the table so far for the Waterdogs?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a skill set to be able to dodge and do a lot of things. And right now I'm just kind of figuring out how I can use my skill set to the best of my ability to help the Waterdogs win. So, wherever that may be. And like I said, you got Zach Currier in the wing. So my job isn't really to go on the wing and pick up all the ground balls. So I'm just kind of listening right now to be doing my job as a rookie and trying to, do whatever I can to help us win, and kind of like listen to the older guys and, just have fun doing it.
I don't think anybody can argue that your time at Denver, didn't help you, of course, in making the transition to the next level with, of course, your coaching staff and the other guys you played around. How about the travel? In terms of going somewhere different each week, I guess could be because Denver obviously isn't as close to some of the other locations that these guys have had to play with. Has that helped to kind of have a pattern and be able to have a routine, for longer trips?
Yeah, absolutely. Playing in the Big East, being out in Denver, obviously, like you said, we got plenty of time on a plane. So I'm definitely very comfortable in the airport and traveling and things like that. So it's still a lot of traveling. It's still, it's an adjustment to make for every single weekend to be playing. Obviously, there's not really like you have the home games when we did it at school, but I'm definitely comfortable on a plane and traveling around to play. So it was definitely a much easier transition for me than it might be for some other guys, I feel like.
By the way, that question comes from somebody who doesn't like flying. So I get it. You know what I mean? If you're comfortable on playing, go for it. But like I think about that. It's very daunting to me. It's a very daunting task.
Well,
what were you going to say, Travis? Yeah.
I mean, the good news, Jack, you do have a home game this week. You're still there in Denver where you went to school. You get to, not only are you playing in Denver, you're playing at Peter Barton Stadium. How cool is that going to be here this weekend?
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited. I mean, when I graduated, kind of seeing the PLL schedule and being unsure, obviously I had to go earn a roster spot and things like that, but I was never really totally sure if I was going to play in Peter Barton again. So, being, still on campus now, living here right now, it's going to feel like it's a regular season game again, and I'm playing at home. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm excited to see all the fans in Denver show out to Peter Barton again. It's going to be a very exciting weekend.
Yeah, obviously your pro lacrosse career has begun. Also, your post-collegiate career in life is here. I guess, how do you approach that? What's going to be different? How different is it going to be for you?
Well, we're still only a couple months into adult life, so I would say I haven't changed much yet. Obviously the season ends for college, and you kind of get thrown right into this PLL thing, and it kind of happens quickly, and it's very fun while you're doing it. But I would say not too much has changed in my life yet. I'm still focused on lacrosse and just kind of staying in the best shape I can and playing as best as I can. But I don't know. For right now, my life has not changed that much, I don't think.
Yeah, you got to soak up the early post-college life as much as possible, because once you really get in the real world, it's over. Like you're in it for the long haul. You grew up in Ohio. You play in Denver, two places where I think the sport has really emerged in big and fun ways. Like, compare what it was like growing up in Ohio playing this sport to what you've experienced with the lacrosse culture in Denver that obviously has really continued to grow.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I would say when I was growing up in Ohio, lacrosse was definitely still growing. I mean, it was just became a state sanctioned sport my freshman year of high school. And just the amount that it's grown since I was in high school, when I go back and do camps and hang out with the high school kids at my high school and go help them out at their practices and coach them up and things like that. The skill growth and the game in Ohio has grown exponentially. It's absolutely amazing to see. Now you got kids going to college on a regular basis. It's not rare to see a kid go play Division I out of Cincinnati, Ohio now, and that's awesome to see. And the game's definitely growing really fast. And then kind of moving in from when I was in Ohio to come to Denver, the lacrosse scene in Denver is fantastic. I mean, the fans love it. The kids are good. The kids, the entire community of the high school game, the youth game, and everything like that in Denver is amazing. And it's, it was really fun to be a part of, being able to coach some kids up in the area and be around it for the last couple of years while I was at Denver. It's been awesome. I can't say anything but positive stuff about it.
And now, in the NLL side of things, you were picked in the expansion draft by the Vegas Desert Dogs. I guess we'll start these questions. This is a whole different world, I guess, out there in Vegas compared to what you just talked about. That's why I want to ask about it. What is a desert dog to you? I don't know. I don't know what a desert dog is.
I don't know if I know or not. I mean, yeah, like what's a water dog? I guess it's just like a water dog. I don't know if there's a specific dog that only lives in the water, but I also don't know if there's a dog that specifically lives in the desert. I don't know. I mean, in my mind, they're both dogs. Dogs, they one in the same term for me. So I don't know. I guess it's just location for the desert dogs. We're just dogs that live in the desert.
Jack, I mean, this has become big, but like you could say you got some dog in you, that's where we're going at this point, because all you do apparently is play for the dogs.
I guess you could say I'm a double dog. Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad
on a more serious note about the opportunity to play in the NLL, we were talking about this before. You played a little bit of box in Ohio when you were coming out of high school, and you've played some in the summer when you were in college. What do you look forward to about the opportunity to possibly compete in the NLL?
I would say more than anything, I'm excited to learn. There's a lot that I've picked up over the years and playing for my coaches at Denver that have a great impact in the box game as well as in the field game. So I've picked up a lot and learned a lot about the box game throughout the years at Denver, and just kind of being a part of the collegiate series in the U.S. Box Up and playing in that. I've picked a lot up, but at the same time, there's still so much to learn about the game, and I'm really excited to be around some of these Canadian guys that have been playing their whole life and really see how much I can develop my game some more to help me out, kind of moving down the road here. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just excited to learn. I'm excited to see what I can do and help the Desert Dog wins games.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that's exciting for you to still have some of that structure, too, and have something to prepare for on a weekly basis, because you hear a lot about, obviously, rookies in the field game do so well right off of that college, all that structure they have, and then second and third years when it's, all right, what are you going to do now that you're not coming right off the college season? I'm sure having the NLL for you, as it has for some other guys, will help with that, and staying, on that week-to-week, and obviously it's a grind, but keeping up for the field game at the end of the summer, at the beginning of the summer, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the NLL season's obviously longer, and it's it's intensive. You're playing a lot of lacrosse, and that's what I want to do. That's kind of what I've signed up for at this point. I want to play as much lacrosse as I can and continue to as good as I can to be helpful here in the NLL and the PLL. So, yeah, I'm excited, and I think it's going to help me moving forward.
Well, Jack, we wish you luck this weekend. We can't wait to see you back there at Peter Barton Stadium with the Waterdogs. Big game for you guys this weekend. We'll be watching, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, we're approaching week 3 of the Athletes Unlimited women's lacrosse season. Sam Apuzzo's team hasn't lost just yet, but it is Taylor Moreno who sits in first. New captain this week is Lizzie Colson. Amanda Johansson also gets her second straight captaincy, but it's Colson in her first that we wanted to talk to. Travis caught up with her today.
So as we get ready for another week of Athletes Unlimited lacrosse action, we've got Lizzie Colson, one of this week's captains, joining us now. Lizzie, for you, we're talking on Monday before you draft. So let's talk strategy. Like, what's your strategy going into being a captain this week?
I think my strategy going in to this week is just kind of like I just said, to try and think about who I wouldn't want to compete against and try and grab them on my team before someone else can. I think I'm going to try and grab a really strong midfield, some players who can just play both sides of the ball, and then obviously get some girls who can put the ball away in times when we need some goals. And then defensively, I guess just people who I like playing next to, people who I feel secure and safe next to on the field. But, you really can't go wrong. There's so many good players. I think it'll be fun. It'll be interesting.
So who are those offensive players that you don't want to have to match up against in this league?
There's a lot of them. There's so many good shooters, but like the obvious Charlotte North she's just a great shooter and she can just finish in times when teams need her. I think Lauren Gilbert's been looking really, really good. She looks quick. Kenzie Kent's super shifty on the offensive side. I could go on. There's so many people who, you got to keep an eye on. So yeah, hopefully I get, one of my top choices as the attackers, someone who can finish and put the ball away when we need some points.
Over the course of these first couple of weeks, what have you learned about this league and this season this year? For you, obviously coming off playing in the World Championships as well.
Yeah, it's been cool to watch all these girls come from all these different schools and bring their own style and creativity. It's been really fun to learn from all of them, game after game after game. So that's been something that was really, really fun, has been really fun to be a part of. I think the style of this league is right up my alley. It's fast, it's competitive, it's kind of scrappy a little bit. And I really, really like how, they let us play, and it's intense almost, but it's fun and it's been really, really cool. And cool to get to know people from all these different places, but definitely different than World Cup because of the international rules versus this league's rules. But I really enjoy how this is going.
You mentioned speed, and you showed off some speed this past week going end to end. What do you think your top speed was on that goal where you picked it up at one end and went all the way to the other?
I have no idea. I honestly blacked out running down the field. It helps that this field is shorter. It's not 100 yards. It's a little bit smaller because there's less people out there. So that's helpful. But, yeah, I had, taken a couple of shots in the last 2 weeks previously, kind of in the same situation, running down the field, and I shot a little bit farther out, and I probably had space to keep running it in. And I just remember this time I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake of shooting from outside. I'm not an outside shooter. And so I ran it all the way in. Pretty much I was on top of the crease.
Hey, whatever works, and it worked. And like you're mentioning like some of the players you have in the midfield and what you value. Like I think you outran Dempsey in the middle of the field. Like you showcased that you're maybe one of the fastest players on the field with that play.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, yeah, we have good energy, great tips. So it was just fun banter back and forth, but it is fun to just, I don't know, feels good to run. I like running. It's something I think I'm good at, so try to play to my strengths out on the field.
We mentioned the World Championship event and your experience with Team USA. What was that experience like in representing the United States and winning gold?
It was unreal. I mean, it was like an experience I've never had. It was unlike any lacrosse tournament or game I've ever played in. And, it's something that from a young age has been a dream of mine. And then almost felt like it was ripped away a little bit from me when I tore my ACL. So to be able to come back and fight through that and overcome so much in such a short amount of time, I think it was 2 years after the ACL tear that we were back out there. It was just, years and years of emotions and anticipation. and then, you're finally there getting the medal around your neck. Like it's unreal. And there's just no real words to describe it. It was super, super fun.
Yeah, because that happened during the tryout process, your knee injury, right? Back in 2019. Like, what are the emotions like? You're getting your gold medal, thinking back to probably one of the low points of your athletic career.
Yeah, there really are no words for it. I think the pandemic, as bad as it sounds, kind of helped me in my recovery timeline, just because it bought me that extra year to get faster, to get stronger, and to come back from the ACL feeling better. So I think that extra year kind of really did help me. But I think, for a second, I didn't think that this was going to be probable for me. I didn't think that I'd be able to make it back to Team USA. And I'll never forget the feeling of laying on the turf post ACL tear, but I also never forget the feeling of walking across, getting a medal on the turf in the same USA jersey. It's just something like I will never be able to describe, but it was truly like incredible.
Outside the gold medal and winning that championship game, like what's the story or the memory that you'll take away from the experience from the World Championships that's maybe something that's not just the obvious? Like, what's something that you'll take away?
I think, our slogan or our line for the year that we made public that we're really trying to stick to was more than a medal. And I think that, being on our home soil and being the first team to win on home soil, that's incredible. And that speaks for itself. But I think outside of the lacrosse piece of it, it's just the inspiration that we are hoping to be for that next generation of girls, boys, of young athletes. We really just wanted to be that resource for those younger generations. And so I think, being in my home state of Maryland and walking across the turf after the games and seeing girls I've trained for years, or girls from across the country, or girls I didn't even know, like right in my home state, just rooting for us and supporting us. Like, I think just hoping to be that inspiration for the next generation is the storyline. I think that it was great exposure. There were games on all kinds of platforms. You could watch anywhere. More countries than there'd ever been in the World Games. So I think that it was really cool to see the growth of it, and really cool to see us, hopefully inspire some younger athletes.
Yeah, it was an incredible event. And from whether it was your team, Canada, England, like some of the goals that were scored, it was so entertaining to watch. It was a really, really fun tournament. Speaking of the younger generations, obviously Athletes Unlimited has been big in terms of supporting athletes' causes. And one that you have been representing is Morgan's Message, which I think is such a really important cause in raising awareness for the mental health, especially as student athletes. It's something that we continue to see be an issue in college sports. How did you develop the relationship with Morgan's Message, and what do you hope that people take away from you having a chance to represent that organization through your play?
Yeah, so I got in touch with Morgan's Message actually during a little bit after the pandemic hit. I was going through my own ACL recovery and trying to figure out what it looked like, in daily life of not playing sport and not having a stick in my hand, not being able to go for runs. And I think, I lost myself a little bit. I was not really feeling myself. I was trying to be a captain for a team of girls at Maryland, but I wasn't my best version of myself. I just didn't really know where to go, and I didn't know how to support myself and kind of pull myself out of this rut that I was in post ACL. And so I got in touch with Morgan's Message and became an ambassador with that program. And basically what they're trying to do is normalize, mental health. It's just as important as physical health in athletes, and just normalize these conversations and normalize the stigmas that surround mental health. It's a great organization that just really its focus is to put as much emphasis on mental health as we do on physical health. And, they both coincide. You can't, if you don't, you're not your best mentally. And so getting in touch with them has just honestly shifted so much of my life, and it's been so impactful. And a lot of the work I do now is, making sure that I train athletes individually, but I also do a lot of mental skills with teams and with younger athletes individually or in small groups, just working on these mental skills and developing things that, yes, it's important to play wall ball. Yes, it's important to run your reps, but it's also important to work on confidence, work on, reframing, work on that performance anxiety, or just kind of like injury. What am I doing now? I'm hurt and I can't play. Who am I? And what can I do for my team? Just that mental part of the game is something that's been always important to me. And I think, when my ACL tear happened to me, it really came to light, like how important it is to me, and how I want to be a resource, and I want to be an outlet for girls too. No one should be alone, when they're upset or if they're hurting in their mental health journeys. So I just want to be an ally to whoever can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for athletes, men, women, like old, young. I feel like it's always like mental health and like talking about being weak or having troubles is never somebody any athlete wants to talk about. So normalizing it, I think, is so important. And to see people with your platform, I think can really hopefully make a difference.
I hope so. I hope it can.
Somebody who has made a difference in the lacrosse community, another former Terp is Taylor Cummings, and she obviously is calling it now a career. I wonder, you having the opportunity to play alongside her and watch her come up as you were coming up through the ranks, what's it like seeing her now step away from playing the sport?
I can't thank Taylor enough for everything she's done for, the sport, but also just for me and for all the Terps or not Terps, all these like lacrosse players everywhere, the way she's just transformed the sport and been an absolute trailblazer for lacrosse. I can't thank her enough. She helped me fall in love with lacrosse. I've never, before US, had never played with her. She was at Maryland before I got there. So the only time we had played together was at like alumni weekend kind of thing. So it was really, really special to play next to her. And I think with that opportunity to play next to her at US, I learned, I knew she was a trailblazer. I knew she, how much she was doing for the sport, and it was incredible. But I learned so much more about her as a person and who she is at her core. And she's so incredible, so special, a great leader, a great friend, and an awesome mentor. And I can't thank her enough for what she's done for me. And I'm sure, so many people feel the same. She's great. Yeah, she has meant a lot to this sport and one of the best we've ever seen play this game. It's going to be weird to not see her on the field moving forward. Finally, for you, on top of having a gold medal, you got engaged this spring, right? Like, what's this year been like for you? Yeah, I did get engaged. This year's been wild, like so crazy. I moved across the country. I got engaged. Like, there's been so much, but yes, I did.
But hey, congratulations. Just pack it all in 1 year. Just make it one super year. And it's a good one for Lizzie Colson. We appreciate the time. Good luck with the draft here tonight. We can't wait to see Team Colson in action this weekend and Athletes Unlimited action.
Thank you so much.
Great catching up with Lizzie. Awesome career. Maryland, Team USA stuff. She's been busy these last few years and months.
Yeah, she got engaged in the spring, has a gold medal now to add to the bling, and now a captain in Athletes Unlimited.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Living, loving, and laxing. That's true to the word, true to the phrase,
yes,
if you will.
Phrase.
All right, speaking of phrases, so the Professional Box Lacrosse Association is coming here soon to a city near you, if you will.
It is.
And they're having a vote for team names. And, I don't know if they're just trying to have segments like this on shows like this, but they are a treat. Let's start. You have once been a Binghamton guy.
I lived in Binghamton.
Rumble Ponies is the name of their baseball team.
I lived in Binghamton for a number of years right out of college, and they are one of the teams. They've got some good options here. So here are the 4 options for Binghamton for their Professional Box Lacrosse Association.
This is good. Stick with us. This is very entertaining.
You're going to want to listen to all these, so give us a second. You got the Binghamton Bombers.
No, that's the Ithaca name.
Binghamton Bravehearts, the Binghamton Blast, or the Binghamton Brawlers. What would your selection be?
I'm going Blast.
I like Blast. I also like Bravehearts. Like the Braveheart style, the way to end a game.
I think about Mel Gibson when I see Braveheart, and I don't want to do that.
And you don't want the Ithaca Bombers to have some crossover, maybe with the Binghamton Bombers.
I don't.
Could be a great sponsorship opportunity for the two of them.
Yeah, we've got Bronx Bombers, Ithaca Bombers.
Yeah, exactly. So Binghamton just going to roll right into that.
Too. All right, Charlotte. We'll go. Yeah. Charlotte Fury. Charlotte Gold Diggers, that is, Charlotte Bootleggers, and Charlotte United Lax. These are all very different, these ones.
I just can't get over the merchandise opportunities that the Charlotte Gold Diggers would have.
Yeah, like some guy digging for gold with a lacrosse stick.
I mean, boom. Kanye West's song would have to be the goal song for every single goal ever scored in that organization's history.
Yeah, yep, that's true.
That's back when Kanye was writing some hits. You know?
You're saying he hasn't lately?
I haven't enjoyed a lot of the latest Kanye. I do like the old stuff.
I don't like any of these names. All right, let's move on to Elmira. Let's go back to the 607.
Yeah, shout out to the southern tier of New York.
Yes.
You know what? The Binghamton-Elmira rivalry, I just foresee being terrific.
What road is that?
Yeah, well, it was Route 17 for the longest time, but I believe it finally has turned into Interstate 86.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so for a long time it was...
Finally.
So...
thank goodness.
1786, whatever you call it, it's, you go about an hour to the west of Binghamton, you hit Elmira, where...
I'm so glad they changed that road name. Yeah.
Where you have a couple of different options. You got the Elmira Tilt, the Elmira Express, which is also the name of the high school team there for Elmira.
Ernie Davis.
Yeah, named after the great Ernie Davis, who was the first African-American to win the Heisman Trophy at Syracuse, thank you very much. Terrific. So, but you can't, for the high school team and the professional box team to have the same name doesn't make any sense. So you got to cross that one out. Elmira Renegades and Elmira Huckleberries.
Is the Huckleberry native to that region?
I do not know.
Okay. I'm going Renegades then. And the Huckleberries is...
I mean, could you imagine?
I guess the Ohio State is Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of in the same kind of a feel, right?
Buckeye seems a little bit tougher than Huckleberry.
I mean, Huckleberry sounds like it'd be very sour. That's pretty tough. Like, you go pick those things off a branch and you're not
All I can think about is Huckleberry Finn.
Hampton. Let's go to Hampton. The Hampton Neptunes, the Hampton Salty Crabs, the Hampton Hammerheads, and the Hampton Hooligans are your four.
I'm all in on Salty Crabs.
Okay, yeah. That's not bad.
Now, it would be better if you were in Baltimore, because Virginia Beach, I guess crabs are
still salty there, yes. And we already had a Hammerheads team in Connecticut.
We did. They didn't last
as short of time as they were. Neptunes, I mean, it is the farthest planet from the sun sometimes, and also the king of the deep.
Yeah.
Neptune. Hooligans, I don't think you should be.
No.
I don't think you should be really supporting hooligans or that kind of behavior.
Yeah. So Salty Crabs? You in?
Sure. Let's go Salty Crabs there.
By the way, you can vote on all these team names on the PBLA website. But we're going to keep on rolling through. A couple more options.
Three more to go. Three more teams. We can power through this.
We got New England, New England Warriors, New England Rebellion, New England United Lax, and my personal favorite, the New England Chowderheads. Once again, strictly for the merchandise.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Chowderhead has a bit of a negative connotation to it, doesn't it?
You can change that connotation by the way in which you play on the floor.
What is your merchandise thought for Chowderhead?
It seems kind of limitless. You got some cups of chowder on there. I mean, but the thing with the merchandise is that you need things that apply people are going to want to buy that are outside of just the lacrosse realm. Like if you see a shirt with a cup of chowder on it and you're from New England, you go, maybe I need that shirt.
Okay. Oh, cool. I guess so. I don't like any of those.
Okay.
Trenton, the Trenton Terror, the Jersey Shorehounds, the Trenton Titans, and the New Jersey Chopper Squad.
What are you going for?
New Jersey Choppers. Like, what are we doing? What's going on there?
Jersey Shorehounds.
What is a Chopper Squad?
I think it's like a motorcycle gang.
I was thinking helicopters.
No, I think like chopper, like my chopper.
Like the HELL hockey sticks, Angels, like
yeah, like a motorcycle gang.
Okay.
I picture a lot of black and silver.
Okay.
In those uniforms.
I kind of like Terror.
The Trenton Terror.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an emotion.
I mean, they do have the Trenton Thunder.
True.
So I guess that kind of goes along the same realms there.
Shorehounds, dogs test well, so you can also put dogs in there.
Jersey Shorehounds, once again, for the merchandise. Just go up to any boardwalk in Jersey and sell Shorehounds memorabilia. You're in.
Yeah.
Game over.
And you got the people that send in their pictures of the dogs, like every other league in the world does. All right, let's finish up with Syracuse.
You want to do Syracuse? It's your hometown.
I mean, it is. I was born in Syracuse, New York.
Yep, go for it.
Syracuse Sasquatch. Never saw one there. Well, I guess no one has really ever spotted
no
Sasquatch
one has spotted
anywhere.
Sasquatch,
the Syracuse Revolution, Syracuse Flow, and the Syracuse Sparkle Muffins.
Sparkle Muffins really hits the
Syracuse Sparkle Muffins. Now, I grew up in Syracuse.
Yeah.
I lived in the area for a long time in my life. I have never heard anything connected to sparkles or muffins, other than maybe a nice bakery here and there. So I don't know where that comes from, why it is, or who decided to put that in there.
I think they should go with Sasquatch.
The Syracuse Sasquatch. But there's no real, it's not like a place where Sasquatches have been spotted in their day.
Has anybody seen a
Yes.
Sasquatch?
There's people that have claimed to have seen them.
There's just a lot of snow. You can make all white, fresh uniforms. You got a big, intimidating Sasquatch on the front.
I think that's like the abominable snowman.
Yeah, well.
I think they're different. Like Sasquatches are in more warmer climates.
They are?
The abominable is like the winter version of that.
Oh, okay.
So you could Syracuse. What if you went like Syracuse snowmen? You know?
You want to be named the Snowman?
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of fun.
All right, well, Tom,
Syracuse Snowmen.
I don't know if they're taking write-ins anymore. I don't think they
are.
Stevie
be involved. Maybe get some rights to him. Any other famous snowmen that you know?
Not that I know.
Okay, well, imagine you have people that build a snowman with a lacrosse stick. And
look. The salt potatoes have become a huge thing for merchandise for the Syracuse now Mets, the AAA affiliate.
Yeah, that would be a good.
Maybe the Sparkle Muffins have.
Yeah, but Syracuse is known as the Salt City.
I know.
Their
and the salt potatoes are a big deal up there.
Yeah, Sparkle Muffins are not. We need to know, what is. I mean, that's the thing everyone's going to vote for.
You know what we need? We need a team in Utica to be named the Utica Greens.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be perfect.
Imagine being just a guy or a woman in life, and you're playing on this team, in the box team. I don't know if the women are involved or not, but I'm just saying. And you're at your work, and you're like, I got a game this weekend. Oh, who do you play for? Syracuse. Oh, the Syracuse? What's your nickname? The Sparkle Muffins. You might lose your job. You might have to walk out. It's over. The Syracuse Sparkle Muffins.
I wish the people luck in choosing these team names.
You're the people.
The people out there. You guys go vote. The website for the Professional Box Lacrosse Association, and we will
imagine if this gets big and it's on ESPN someday. Oh, big game tonight. The Sparkle Muffins taking on the Hooligans.
Have you seen some of the games you can watch on ESPN Plus?
Yeah.
You got names galore out there.
There's a lot of names. That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of different names for different
Whatever
teams.
you think is going to be successful. They're putting it in the people's hands. So I'm interested to see what people vote for. We just gave you our opinions.
People's hands. Well, watch out. That's a scary thought for a lot of reasons.
Go vote. PBLA.com.
That was a fun little exercise we just did.
That was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see if anybody's still listening to this. But for now, he's Tom. I'm Travis. We'll see you next week.